Welcome to the DisabiliTEA, a podcast where we have candid discussions about all things related to disability. Short-term, long-term, financial claims, impact on other areas of life, causes in the workplace, and more. With your host, attorney Anjel Burgess. You can find this show at www.disabilityhelpline.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now here's the host of the DisabiliTEA, Anjel Burgess.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the DisabiliTEA. Today, we are pleased to have with us special education attorney and advocate Francis Schefter from Schefter Law PA. Welcome, Francis.
Thank you, Anjel. Thank you for having me on the show, and I'm happy to share information with your listeners.
Well, we are very excited because I know that you've got a lot of great information to share with our listeners. So let's just dive right in. Tell us first why you decided to start Schefter Law PA.
So I was originally a teacher. I did my undergrad in early childhood. I was teaching regular education. I got my master's in special ed. I was teaching special ed. And then I was in an administrative teaching position as special ed coordinator. And something just didn't feel right. It just wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. So I decided to go to law school. And in law school, I always knew I would either represent the families or represent the schools.
Okay.
I'm much happier representing the families. So that's when I started as Schefter Law PA. Well, I started as the law office of Francis Schefter, but then in 2019 became Schefter Law PA.
Excellent. So with your practice, I know that you're a special education attorney and advocate. Can you tell us what the difference is?
So an attorney has a license, is barred. We have the ethics and standards we need to follow. If anything goes wrong, there is a course of action. An advocate is usually a former special ed teacher or a regular ed teacher, or even a parent, somebody that of knowledge that knows about the law. So I say I'm both, or they know the law, but they're not a licensed attorney. Okay. So I say both because I'm a licensed attorney, plus I have all of the education. So I'm an education advocate as well.
Excellent. And your background certainly has more than prepared you for this area of practice. So in terms of ways that you can help families, how do they know that they need you?
If your child has an IEP or a 504 plan, or if you think your child needs one, you need me.
Okay.
I offer, and everybody's like, of course you're going to say that, but no, I offer what's called a strategy session of my firm. And that's a 1-hour meeting with one of the attorneys to talk about what's going on with your child's case and what's going on in school, and to develop a plan of action to get you where you want to be. So it's not necessarily, sometimes we tell them, you got this, you're good. And it's just reassuring them. Sometimes they hire us. It all depends, but we're not, like, the strategy session isn't your typical consult where we're just trying to sell you our business. We are giving you a plan of action and then moving from there. Wonderful.
I know that you also have an experience that you call a stress-free IEP. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So I came up with the phrase one time out walking, and I just liked the ring of it. So I just kind of adopted it and started using it. And now it's trademarked. We're waiting for the registration. But it's about, like, that's what I want to provide families, not being stressed, and everybody's like, you can't go to an IEP meeting without stress. I'm like, you can if you have a person of knowledge with you. And somebody that knows the law, and somebody that knows the education, knows how to rewrite an IEP if we have to, knows the teacher's language and how to use their language back to them to get what you want. And I tell my clients all the time, they're like, well, what should we or shouldn't we do? I'm like, be the parent. Don't worry about it. No matter what you say in that room, there's nothing you can say that I can't say. What my clients are trying to say is, and put it in the words we need it to get the direction where you want to go with your child.
That's excellent. So do you find that most of your clients that come to you already have an IEP in place, and perhaps that IEP is not being appropriately followed by the school, or what is the most common scenario for you?
I really have a mix because I've had a lot that come that the school just won't evaluate.
Mm,
And so we have to jump in. We have um, families that just want somebody with them on the annual review,
okay.
or they're in the eligibility process and they just didn't feel right at the first meeting and want somebody with them. So it's really all stages. Like I'm trying to think of like which I have the most of, and I mean probably eligibility track is probably the most right now, but we have everything else as well.
So let's talk about the family um, whom the school will not evaluate. So, is there a point in time as a parent where something may be going on with your child, um, where you know the parent should take steps to ask the school to have their child evaluated?
Yes. So the first thing is if the parent thinks your child, if you think your child needs evaluating, you ask the school. You put it in writing and you say, I suspect there's some educational issues with my child. I want to start the special education process. Please let me know when we'll have the meeting.
Okay.
The school technically has 30 days from there to have that meeting to discuss whether the school thinks the child's eligible on data that they already have, the school needs more evaluations and evaluate, or the school says, no, we don't see what you see. We don't think we need to evaluate.
And if the school comes back and says, we don't think the school needs to evaluate any further, based off of the information that we have, we think that your child is just fine where they are, and doesn't need any services. Can they contact you at that point if they disagree, to try to help to get the needed services for the child?
100%. I just had a case of that. So when a school refuses to evaluate, or the school does an evaluation that the parents don't agree with, you can ask for what's called an independent educational evaluation, an IEE, at public expense. So the
Okay.
first thing that a parent should do if the school says no is, well, then I want an IEE. The school's not going to, legally, they have two ways to respond. Yes, you can have the IEE, or they file due process against the parent. If they don't have an evaluation to support, they're not going to win anything. So you're going to get either the school will say, okay, we'll evaluate, or the school will give you the IEE. And then that starts the process to keep going.
Okay. And what about kind of switching gears to a different scenario? Let's say that, the child does have an IEP, but the parents don't feel that the IEP is either appropriately being utilized by the school, or maybe the parent feels that there's some additional services that are needed that are not in the IEP. Can you be hired at that time?
Yes, 100%. And so either myself or my new attorney, who also is a former special education teacher, we can do what's called a document review with the strategy session. In that case, you send us the information beforehand. Whoever you're booked the strategy session with reviews all the documents and then has a conversation with you about what we see and if we agree with it. Integrity is very important to the firm. And so if a parent wants one way, but we don't see the data to support it, we won't go that way.
Okay. All right. So you're going to give the families an honest review of the data that's available, and help the families to understand how that may or may not align with whatever goals that they have for their child.
Correct.
Okay. Correct. What states are you able to provide services to families in?
So right now we are licensed in Maryland, DC, Florida, and now New Jersey, because my new associate is licensed in New Jersey. So there we can provide legal services.
Okay.
Nationwide, we can provide advocacy services. And the difference with us is we can't call ourselves lawyers in a state that we're not barred. So we're still a lawyer, but in that state, we're just an advocate.
Okay.
And IDEA is the only federal law that has that area that parents can bring a person of knowledge. It doesn't have to be an attorney.
Okay.
If we're in the IEP meeting, then it's fine. We're not technically acting as an attorney, we're acting as an advocate.
Right.
Some states allow the advocate to take a case through due process if necessary. Some states do not. So it just depends on the state and where you are in the process.
So no matter where any of our listeners or anyone that we have watching, no matter where you live, if you are either interested in having an advocate or an attorney to at least sit down and review your goals with you as a family, or to review any documentation that you have, definitely Schefter Law, you'll want to contact them. And they can kind of take things from there, but at least they can review things with you and decide what the best course of action is.
Yes.
What about free resources? So I know that you are big on educating the community. So are there free resources that you have that our listeners or our viewers can tune into to get some more information?
Yes. So I have a YouTube channel, Schefter Law PA. I have over 100 videos. Most of them are 3-minute videos with just questions that have come up to, in my areas, in my years of practice. So I have like, what are the 8 parts of an IEP? And then I have the 8 videos after explaining each part of the IEP. What do you do when a school says no? Like all the questions that parents have asked me, I've done a quick video on. And then there's also the video I, like you, do a show. It's called Stress-Free IEP, where I interview people in the disability community that provide services. So like physical therapists, occupational therapists, psychologists. I've had them all on my show, which I need to have you on my show too. So that's the YouTube channel. And then I also have on my webpage that I have, I believe, 4 downloads right now. One is procedural safeguards, which for those that you don't know, it's a 34-page book usually with all of your rights and legal rights. We have it on 1 page.
Wow.
So just the nitty-gritty of what you need to know, and so that you know the basics and know the words to use. I'm trying to remember the other ones we have. We have an acronyms one, because schools love acronyms. So just kind of the breakdown of acronyms. We have my presentation on appropriateness of extended school year, which is a big one because most states don't do it appropriately. And my last one is what to look for in an IEP. But as we speak, those are getting updated and we're adding some more. So there's lots of free resources on my site, Schefter Law PA.
Wonderful. Now, we've talked about IEPs and kind of the services that you provide around IEPs. Do you work at all with 504 plans?
Yes, we do 504 plans as well. A lot of times, schools like to say that, oh, well, you have to start with a 504 plan. And then if that doesn't work, we can go to an IEP, which is completely not true. Mm-hmm. The difference is a 504 plan is accommodations. An IEP has specialized instruction. If your child needs specialized instruction, they need an IEP. Accommodations aren't going to work. So it's a different form of eligibility. And so a lot of times parents will go and get the evaluation and the school will say, oh, well, eligible for a 504 plan or not eligible for a 504 plan. And that's where we can come in and help. And then we also now just started helping people on the college level with ADA accommodations.
Okay.
So, because it's very different. A lot of times parents walk into the college or university with the IEP and into the disability office and say, here's my child's IEP, you need to implement it.
Right.
It's like, that's not the way it goes here.
So do you have clients that need both, that need an IEP and a 504 plan?
I mean, yes, you can have both. Usually the IEP covers everything that the 504 plan would cover.
Okay.
So that's why you don't usually see both, but you can have both because they're under different laws. So remedies are different. And then the other one that's relevant is healthcare plan. For children that have physical disabilities and need health issues, have health issues and need things at the school to be done, there's a healthcare plan that's separate.
And do you all help with the healthcare plans as well?
We do.
Okay.
We definitely do. Yeah. I mean, it's anything that's school-based we can help with because it's just we've either done it, experienced it ourselves, or know somebody that has, so we can find the way and get them there.
Now, one of the things that I see a lot in my practice with disability and representing children and families who are trying to get benefits is that with children and transitioning age children, right? So, getting ready to turn 18 or, in the 18, 19, 20-ish range. I will also see some instances where there are behavioral issues. And I know that some families have a lot of challenges as it relates to services for their child or children with behavioral issues. So is that something that you see when you are, representing families, is trying to make sure that those behavioral issues are properly addressed by the school?
Yes, 100%. And that's so when I was a teacher, we used to say, the children that are misbehaving are two reasons. One, they are so bright, and are so bored in the class, they're looking for something to excite them. Or two, they're so far behind and lost, and they don't want anybody else to see. So most of the time, well, I shouldn't say most of the time because I've had both, on both levels. But, when a child's misbehaving, you need to go and look at why. Children don't just misbehave.
Mm-hmm.
They're asking for help. And it's the parents and the school's job to find out what help this child needs, how to support the child to keep them on track educationally.
So if there are, behavioral issues that are impacting the child's performance in class, or maybe even so much that the child is being sent to an alternative school, are you able to help families in those situations as well to make sure that the placement is appropriate given the issues that the child is having?
Yes, 100%. Definitely. I've done it a few times because when there's certain behaviors, the schools, like, as you said, an alternative placement, and that most of them do not have all of the supports needed. They can implement some IEPs, but not all. And so when I come in, my argument is that, whoa, when was the last IEP meeting? When was the last functional behavior assessment and behavior intervention plan? Have you guys been doing your job to help this child learn how to regulate themselves in school before just tossing them to an alternative placement? So we can come in and help look and then help make that argument of why that place is not correct and why the school they're in is not correct, and what we can look at alternatively.
All right. Well, that's a really great point that I want to be sure that our listeners and families that are watching, if your child has behavioral needs or issues, because I see it a lot. And what I tend to see is off you go to another school. And I don't usually see a lot of, okay, let's try this behavioral intervention. Let's try this plan. Let's try this. I just don't see a lot of trying before I see the children just shipped off, right?
Yep, slip through the cracks. Yeah, 100%. And I've had those cases. I've had sad cases. I do a lot of work with the abuse and neglect system in DC. And a lot of times the parents don't know to ask for, and they trust the school, and their child goes for as long as, they go a long time without any services. And then by the time we get to them, if they're in 8th grade and they've never had services, while yes, we can get an IEP put in place, but the behaviors are so there, it's hard to catch them up and get the behaviors, back on track again. But if you catch the behaviors and the root of the behaviors first, and that's the whole point, is that you find out what the root of the behaviors are, what is going on, fix that issue, and the behaviors will go away.
And is that part of what you will address in a strategy session with your office with the families? Do
Yes.
you go over those things and try to figure out what's going on and what steps can be taken?
Yep, 100%. I have gone through them. I have gone to manifestation determination meetings, which is when a child's been suspended more than 10 days in any given school year. They have to determine if the behavior is a manifestation of the disability, because they can't be suspended if it is, because then it's considered a placement change, and the IEP team needs to do placement change. We do that. We also, when a child's misbehaving, even if it's a general education child and is looking at expulsion or something else going on, we can come in and help and look at, should we be looking at something else, or what do we think? And then back to where we said the integrity part is, sometimes I've told clients, like, look, if that's an option, because a lot of parents homeschooled during COVID, and it still could be an option. I'm like, honestly, if that's an option, that's the route I would go personally. Because as much as the schools try, they can't meet the needs of every single child, unfortunately.
Right.
So,
Great. Are there any little nuggets that you could offer to families, or are there any kind of don'ts that you would like to share with families? Before coming to you, if there's anything that a family should not do, that you can share with us.
So the good thing about IDEA is that it's fluid. So even if the parents say, no, I don't want services today, tomorrow they can then put it up again. So It's not like, did they do the right thing? Maybe not the best choice, but it's okay. We can come in. It's not like a lot of times with lawyers, we say, you went cheap at the beginning, so now you're going to pay us double to get you to where you want to be.
Right.
It's the same. It's just, if you brought us on sooner, the child would have gotten the services sooner, or your family would have been less stressed. So there's nothing they can do that I would say don't do. But if you're hesitant at all, like, educate yourself. Google search it, go to my YouTube channel, talk to an advocate, talk to an attorney, get yourself educated so that you know how to advocate for your child and can push as much as you want. And then the other thing would be the secret. One of the secrets I love to say to parents is, just tell them you were talking to an attorney. Just say, well, I was talking to an attorney and they said. I've had that several times, and the person's called me back and say, oh my God, the school did exactly what I wanted. I'm like, yes, because they don't want an attorney to come. Because then they know there's issues. So you can always say that. They don't know. You're not lying. You talked to an attorney. You didn't say what you talked to an attorney about. I think almost everybody's talked to an attorney about something at some point in time. And, that will help. And then the other thing is knowing the language of a PWN, a prior written notice. I think Florida calls it the refusal, but it's basically, if the school refuses to do any action at all that you ask for in the special education process, or they don't go in 504s. In the special education process, you ask the school to do the PWN. And what that is the school needs to say, parents asked for XYZ. The school said no because, and they have to have a reason why. And that goes in the child's file. So like, that's the first step. Like, if you're in a situation and the school says no, you ask them for the PWN before you even come to us at that point, because that we just got in writing what we need to go back and say, well, that's not really a good reason.
Okay. Well, wow, you've shared so many wonderful, helpful tips for families. I think one of the things that I'm relieved to learn from our discussion today, Francis, is that it is not too late. Families, it is not too late. Whatever steps you have taken or you have not taken at this point in time, it is not too late to get help. It is not too late to help your child. So I am really relieved to hear that. And thank you so much for sharing the free resources that you have available. So families, if you're a little hesitant about talking to an attorney at this point, you can certainly access, I think Francis said she's got over 100 videos. So she's got a ton of free information for you all to access. And then once you've had the opportunity to digest what she said, what you've learned, of course, if you have questions, how can they reach you, Francis?
So my website is schefterlaw.com. Schefter, although it's spelled on the screen, I believe. And on my website, you can contact us in so many different ways. Right now, you can call us. You can fill out a contact form on the website page. You can book an intake appointment with my intake specialist, or you can text us.
Okay.
And so we have all ways. So, I thought, I'm a parent with a child with an IEP, and I'm like, if I was stressed out, when am I Googling? 1, 2 in the morning when I can't sleep because of it. So we set it up to make it easy for parents. Whichever way you're comfortable, you can reach out to us, and somebody will get in touch with you the next business day.
All right, wonderful. Well, you heard it here first, folks. So thank you so much to Francis Schefter from Schefter Law PA from sharing so many valuable tools with us about special education law and the services that she provides as an attorney and advocate. So thank you again, Francis. This has been an episode of the DisabiliTEA, and we look forward to talking with you and sharing some great resources with you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the DisabiliTEA with Anjel Burgess. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing the show with others. You can catch prior episodes at www.disabilityhelpline.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.